Welcome to another edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy, and this is your MAC preview in college football for the 2024 season. Looking forward to breaking down the MAC. It's an interesting conference this season. Of course, we've had your usual teams that have been near the top: Toledo, Ohio, Miami, Ohio, the defending champion. But there could be some different faces atop the conference this year, at least in my opinion. So the MAC's an interesting conference to talk about. We will be breaking down that conference for you here in this edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy, college football season preview edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. But first, we want to talk about bitwallet.bet, crypto, sportsbook, and casino. Bet smart, bet anonymously. Football season is right around the corner. I am now using BitWallet. It's the first time I've ever used and endorsed a crypto sports book, and it's seamless. I was able to deposit some Bitcoin into a new account, and I am able to use that money and bet on various sports via BitWallet, and you can too. Using the affiliate link that you see at the bottom of the screen, bitwallet.bet/affiliate/Ian. You can sign up using that link for a new account, and when you do, you will get a 50% deposit bonus on each of your first 3 crypto deposits at BitWallet. Live betting, same-game parlays, live casino dealers, a full array of sports, international, North American, all the major sports you want to be able to wager on, you'll be able to. If you have been looking for a crypto sports book, this is the one you want to go with. bitwallet.bet. And again, sign up with the affiliate link, bitwallet.bet/affiliate/Ian. You'll get a 50% bonus on each of your first 3 crypto deposits. So check it out. Get on board for football season at bitwallet.bet. Another thing you want to get on board with, because the clock is ticking on this, as of Saturday, this discount is off the table. It is only available until the end of day, Saturday, August 24th, which is the first day of the college football season. $250, 6 months all sports discount. After Saturday, it goes back to the original $400 price for 6 months all sports at Dub Club. So make sure you sign up now for this offer. All sports now through February when you sign up, including the entire NFL and college football season. You'll get the rest of the MLB and CFL season. You'll get a large portion of the NHL, NBA, and college basketball season which starts, of course, in the fall. So now is the time to get on board. It's a strong 22.2 units of profit in NFL and college football last season. Again, now until Saturday only for $250 for 6 months all sports. Every side, every total, every player prop, every wager I place in every sport posted at Dub Club, part of your subscription. 6 months all sports discount, $250 until Saturday. The rest of the options are regular price. 1 month all sports, $75. 3 months all sports, $200. 1 year all sports, $750. And if you're looking for a lower volume approach, isolating my top plays and best bets only in all sports on a daily basis, then subscribe at SoBet. There's the link on the screen, $9.95 per month to get best bets and top plays only in all sports from me at SoBet. Let's talk a little MAC. We will begin now with the Akron Zips. The Akron Zips are a team that has obviously had, their struggles and their issues over the years. I think when you look at Akron coming into this season, going to be interesting to see how they fare. But obviously, it's been, an extended rough stretch, I guess you could say, for Akron here in this conference. When you look at Akron coming into this season, it's going to be very difficult, I think, for them to make huge strides forward. They lose quarterbacks that played for them last year. Not that they were lighting it up big time, but, still going to be some change there. Ben Finley projected to be the starting quarterback here, Cal transfer. Meandering numbers last year, actually more interceptions than touchdowns in his time at Cal. So, what they get from him, it's going to be a question mark for sure. When you look at it, there's only 2 starting O-linemen returning this year, only 4 starters back on defense. Defense that was not, bottom third of the country as far as defense is concerned. Actually, you know what? For a program like Akron and a bottom tier MAC squad, To give up 28.6 points per game, not as bad as you would think. So it's going to be interesting. The good news is they do have, a few of their leading tacklers back, but still, that's really the extent of the returning production. Still very light as far as that goes coming into this season for the Akron Zips. I think it's going to be difficult for them to make inroads and make major improvements here in this conference moving forward. There's no doubt there's some potential for Akron to be, I think, a little bit more of a talented team this year than they were last year. But when you look at it, Akron's schedule does them no favors. And when you look at their win total in particular, going to be, I think, a difficult ask for them to be trustworthy, even with the improvement in talent. Because look, they should be actually a little bit better from a talent and overall, on both sides of the football and overall talent standpoint this year. But is it going to result for this Akron team in enough success to go over their win total with the schedule they have? That's the problem that I think they have to go through here. I mean, you only have to get 4 wins. Their win total is 3.5. But are there 4 wins on this Akron schedule? That's going to be the tricky part. You play at Ohio State, at Rutgers, 2 Big Ten opponents on the road to begin the year. Home at Colgate, you can win that. So I can give them 1. At South Carolina, no. At Ohio, probably not. Versus Bowling Green, I don't think they win that game. At Western Michigan, I'm not sure they win that game. I think Western Michigan might be improved this year. Home at Eastern Michigan, they could get that one. Home against Buffalo, they could get that one. But coin flippish, in my opinion, those games. Not a sure thing that we're going to see them be able to win those 2 games, even at home against Eastern Michigan and Buffalo. They're an underdog in pretty much every game this year for the most part. They might even be slight dogs in those 2 home games. So where are the 4 wins going to come from? It's difficult. I do think there's improvement, but there's just so much as far as this team, being able to compete with some of the better teams in the conference. It's a huge step they have to make to get there. I'm not sure they're there yet. I think they might be a good ATS team at times this year as far as spots to bet on. Look, you're going to be getting generous points with Akron, and you're going to get them in the underdog role the majority of the season. So there could be some spots to bet on. They could actually be a winning ATS team. I just don't know if it's going to translate straight up wise to an improvement to the point where they're a 4 or more win team. So 3.5, I'd lean under, although I do think this team might be more talented. And Ben Finley, look, he's capable, but and maybe getting away from Power 5 school and Cal stepping down in class a bit could help a guy like Ben Finley play better at quarterback. So we'll see how it goes for Akron. Next up, we have the Ball State Cardinals. And when you look at Ball State coming into this season, it looks like they are going to go to a freshman here at quarterback. Some downturn here as far as their quarterback play. They lose a lot of experience, and it looks like Caden Simonza is going to be the quarterback, and he's just a freshman here, expected to get the start for Ball State. They lose both of their top running backs from last year. It looks like as far as the receiving core, Magwood's back. He is definitely someone that they should be able to rely on. He was a pretty good receiver for them last year. But again, another team not bringing a ton of returning experience on defense. 3 starters back. The O-line's got a lot of personnel change along the O-line as well, and that's a concern. It's not easy to. This is not a plug-and-play situation when you're talking about this MAC conference. So when you're losing reliable pieces and starters, it's not easy to just, especially early in the season, expect massive improvement right away. So that's definitely something that you get concerned about here for Ball State coming into this season. So I think when you look at this team in particular, Ball State, they have their work cut out for them. You look at what they've got here as far as their schedule. They got to play at Miami. They home against Missouri State. We'll see how that one goes for them. But definitely going to be interesting to see how that goes. Mike New is on the hot seat as well. I think this year as head coach, they need an improvement. They need a better season. I think if they're going to make inroads, their win total is 4.5. I think it's pretty fair. I see them being they might be able to get to 4 wins because Missouri State's a winnable game. At Kent State, is a game that I think, they could win on the road. We'll see about that. Buffalo's a coin flip game on the road. They're going to have a tough time against Northern Illinois, Miami, Ohio, most likely. Western Michigan at home, I guess you could say they got a chance, even though I'm liking what I'm seeing from Western Michigan, and we'll get to them in just a moment. But I think when you look at the Ball State's Cardinals, 4.5 at that win total, I'd lean under slightly, but it's nothing that I have a strong opinion on when it comes to their season win total. The defense loses a lot. The question is Simonza going to be able to play at a decent level for this Ball State offense leading them at quarterback? If he can, I'll give you a way we can probably make some money with Ball State, and that's probably betting their games over the total, because they do lose a lot on the defensive side of the football. Not easy to replace all those faces, especially in this conference. You don't just reload in the MAC. It's not possible to do that for many of these teams, and you can definitely say that about Ball State. But the offense, if they hit on Simonza, and the O-line can cobble together a unit, even though they lose some pieces there. They do have their top receiver back. They do have some talent at that position in particular to make plays in the passing game. There could be an opportunity here for Ball State to be more potent on the offensive side of the football. Like I say, the O-line's not in the same rough shape that the D-line or the overall defense has. Like, when you look at the D-line, man, it's an issue for Ball State, where all 4 starters are gone, and that's a ton from last year. So it will be a step back on defense. There is a chance that if Simonza plays well, this freshman with an O-line that's capable, they still, like I said, their top receiver, probably an over team where their offense is better than their defense. So that would be something I'd look at with Ball State going into the season. All right, Bowling Green Falcons. Here's the first team in our MAC preview here that I could say I'm really, really high on this team this year, where I think they could have a pretty damn good season when it's all said and done. You look at Bowling Green coming into this campaign, and you see year by year building from Scott Leffler, the head coach, who I think has done a solid job here with this Bowling Green Falcons program. There's a lot to like here as far as Bowling Green is concerned coming into the season. It's Connor Bazelak at quarterback, an extremely experienced quarterback, going back to when he was with Missouri for multiple years. He's now been here multiple years. I mean, he has a ton of pass attempts under his belt. So this is a very experienced, group of 5 quarterback. And look, he hasn't had that great season yet, even here at Bowling Green, but he got better as the season went on. He should have his best season by far, here with the Falcons this year. Terrion Stewart returns at running back. He's a dynamic, explosive back for this Bowling Green run game. You look at receiving yards. They bring back a very, very good tight end in Harold Fannin Jr. They've got good weapons at receiver as well. When you talk about, they like Malcolm Johnson, the senior. R.J. Garcia ended up being a great transfer from Kansas State. And again, same with Malcolm Johnson. They bring him in from Auburn. So you get couple of Power 4 transfers into a program like Bowling Green. You're doing something right here if you're Scott Leffler. So credit to him. 4 of the 5 starters on the offensive line are back. That's a positive for Bowling Green as well. No question about it. Should be a really good offensive team. Defensively, look, Bowling Green was a disaster, absolute disaster a couple of years ago, but we saw that defense last year really improve last year. They only had, and the funny thing is that defense last year only had 5 overall starters back on the defensive side of the football, and yet they still improved. And this year they have 7 starters back. No question. This is definitely going to be an even more improved defense on that side of the ball for Bowling Green going into this season. There's a lot to like with what they do bring back, which is good to see. I know they do lose their leading tackler, and he was also very good at getting a pass rush, but they still have Joseph Sipp Jr., an outstanding linebacker, one of their top defensive players from last year, returning to the fold here for Bowling Green this year, which is great to see. I think when you look at a couple of the other places here on this defense, The secondary, it should be pretty solid overall. Multiple starters back. They could improve on that group last year, which is good to see. Very, very interesting. I think when you look at the defensive line this year, a couple of years ago, they couldn't stop the run. It was a big, big problem for Bowling Green. But again, this year, they only have their, one key player gone and Howell. Other than that, though, 3 starters are back. They actually did a nice job here as far as improving and adding to this D line as far as depth. So it should be pretty good defensive line. So a very much solid defense here this year for Bowling Green. This should be, again, one of the best offenses that Bowling Green's had in Scott Leffler's time. His O-line is outstanding. There's weapons to work with. Terrion Stewart, the running back, returns. Bazelak, the quarterback, returns. Should be a great offense. Defense, I think when you look at it, huge steps last year, improved. Their points per game allowed went down. Their yards per game allowed went down. So improvement. And I think they could even improve on those numbers further this year. So, when I look at this team, I like them over their win total. I think they've got the talent. I think they've also got the schedule, believe it or not, to not only make noise and go over the win total. This is a team that I think's got a very good chance to compete, to win the MAC this year, to compete with Toledo and Miami and Northern Illinois and Ohio and all these other teams. Bowling Green, it's a wide open MAC more so this year than we've seen in the past. And I think Bowling Green is very live to be one of the best teams in this conference and maybe even win it. So Bowling Green over their win total, Bowling Green to win the MAC. Bets that I've made, bets that I like quite a bit. All right, Buffalo Bulls next up, and a bet on team, obviously, Bowling Green. I'll be looking to back them throughout the course of the season. I think we'll be able to make money with Bowling Green this year. And let's not forget what Bowling Green did last year as well. Huge upset last year over Georgia Tech. Took down the Yellow Jackets on the road, and there was nothing fluky about that game. They kicked Georgia Tech's tail and Keister, and they were more physical than them at the line of scrimmage. That was not a fluky win for Bowling Green. So there's definitely a lot to like with that group. The Buffalo Bulls, meanwhile, maybe not so much. The one thing I'll say is Maurice Linguist, they make the change. He's gone. I didn't like the direction of because he took over from Lance Leipold when Lance Leipold left for Kansas. Maurice Linguist took over, and you just did not see that program get better. He did not keep it at the level that Lance Leipold left it when he departed. It was a decline with the Buffalo Bulls the last couple of years, so I understand why they made the coaching change. They bring in a guy who's very familiar with the MAC, former head coach of Ball State, Pete Lembo, is going to be the head coach here for the Buffalo Bulls this year. CJ Ogbonna looks like he is going to be the starting quarterback for the Bulls this year. Now, Buffalo does lose the guy that started for them last year, but to be quite honest with you, you talk about erratic, you talk about, up and down, not consistent. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Question is, what is Ogbonna going to give you at the quarterback spot this year? He's also a dual threat. He's capable of running with the ball as well. They do have some running back replacements to deal with. 2 top running backs are gone. They lose a lot at wide receiver. So what is this offense going to look like? There are 3 starters on the O-line back, which is the good thing, but you're talking about a Buffalo team that, breaking in a new quarterback, on defense, actually, you know what? Their linebackers and their secondary is not terrible. I mean, they do bring some back. I do worry about them up front, though. That defensive line is where a lot of the new faces are showing up here for the Buffalo Bulls on the defensive side of the football. So that's going to be an interesting group to see early in the season because, with these MAC teams, even the good defensive lines, when they step up in class, sometimes get run over, sometimes, wear down. When you don't have, quite the depth you think here on the D line, 1 starter back for Buffalo, that's concerning. You might have the football run down your throat when you have that kind of situation. So that's a real concern for Buffalo, the state of that defensive line going into the season. So this year, like the linebacking core should be solid and the secondary should be solid, but boy, that D line's a concern. Where's the pass rush going to be? How are they going to stop the run? So you would be concerned about that coming into this season. When you look at it, the spring game, the offense, it didn't look great under Ogbonna. And again, you're talking about multiple top receivers gone, both top running backs gone, the O-line, in flux. So it's not a surprise to see the O-line. The offense does have some question marks. How is it going to work here for this Buffalo Bulls team? Last year, they averaged barely 20 points per game. Are they going to be able to top that this year? I'm not ready to guarantee that by any stretch of the imagination. Like I said, back seven is okay, but again, the defensive line with just one starter back does concern me here for this Buffalo Bulls team. Not a bad hire with Lembo. He knows this conference well, but it's a rebuilding job. Their win total is 5.5 going into this season. Is that going to be something they're able to eclipse given the schedule? I'm not ready to ask this team to be bowl eligible. It's really that simple. I think at 5.5, I have to lean under with the win total. I'm not necessarily pegging Buffalo to be a dead nuts bet against team. I will say this, though. If teams have a good run game, they're going to be in trouble. Those could be the teams you want to back facing Buffalo, the teams that have a very good ground game. You're talking about a D-line that is just depleted to shit compared to last year, and it could be a major, major concern going into this year because you look at the schedule, home game against Lafayette, they should win, but after that, where are the wins going to come from for Buffalo? It's a legit question. Missouri on the road won't be easy. UMass at home, to be quite honest with you, even that game is not a gimme for Buffalo. This should be a slight favorite. They should be favored in that game, but UMass might be able to make some improvements. And when you look at their schedule, Lafayette and UMass, they'll be favored. Probably favored at Akron. Got a chance to be favored against Ball State and Kent State. So there's probably your 4 games where they're probably going to be favored on the season. 5 games, I should say. But where's the 6th going to come from? They're going to have to upset Toledo. They're going to have to upset Western Michigan, Ohio, one of these teams. UConn. That's where one of their other wins are going to have to come from. So we'll have to wait and see. The hire's solid. I'm very neutral on Buffalo. I'd probably lean under at 5.5. But what if this team ends up being better because they've got a coach that's, had some decent success at Ball State? You leave the door open for that. But I really am neutral when it comes to Buffalo entering the season. And like I said, Maurice Linguist's Buffalo teams were bet against the last few years. Let's see how this one fares before I rush in with a firm opinion on them. All right, Central Michigan Chippewas next up. Going to be interesting. So it looks like, the quarterback is going to be Bert Emanuel Jr. this year for the Central Michigan Chippewas. Although we're not totally sure about that. I'm reading some things in that Joe Labas as really challenging Bert Emanuel for that starting spots in fall camp. And not sure they've made an announcement yet who's going to start for them, but that's definitely something you want to be aware of is the fact that Central Michigan, maybe questions about who will indeed take that first start for them against Central Connecticut State on Thursday, August the 29th. I think when you look at it here, whether it's Joe Labas or Bert Emanuel at quarterback, you have a very good running back, Marion Lucas returning. 3 starting wide receivers are back from last year. You do have 3 of your starting O-linemen back as well for this Central Michigan team. So to be honest, when you look at the offense here with top 2 running backs, top 4 receivers, 3 starters back on the O-line, they should be better on offense this year. They should be improved. Both of those guys, you look at who they, whether it's Joe Labas or whether it's Bert Emanuel at quarterback for this team, it's definitely a situation where they've got guys that even Joe Labas, who transfers in from Iowa, he's got experience in a Power 5 program. Bert Emanuel was here last year. I do think the offense can be improved. There's no question. The defense, can they improve? That's going to end up being the question. It's a defense that gave up almost 30 points per game last year. Not exactly something that you want to see, but they do have 6 starters back. Their best tackler and Trey Jones is back on that defensive side of the football. How much improvement can they make? Should be better, could be better, but the schedule does them no favors. Yes, they host Central Connecticut State to begin the season. And at FIU, is a game where I'm not going to say they can't win it, Um, that's one of those games where, FIU is a team that, has some issues coming into the season, but it's still not going to be an easy game because you got to play them on the road. They're probably not beating Illinois on the road. And then you get into conference play. Ball State at home, we'll see. San Diego State at home probably will be tough. Ohio won't be easy. At Eastern Michigan, probably winnable. At Miami O, doubtful they win that. Don't think they beat Bowling Green. Toledo, Western Michigan, and Northern Illinois to finish the season. Difficult difficult games there, in my opinion. Right now with Central Michigan, too, have you seen this program really go forward under Jim McElwain? And what I would have to tell you right now is no, we haven't. And so that's something that you have to factor in and be concerned with here. Sixth year for Jim McElwain here at Central Michigan, and we just have not really seen this program take massive strides. I mean, 5-7. Remember, Central Michigan was ruling the MAC going back to when Dan Lefevre was the quarterback here 10 plus years ago. It's probably even longer than that now. It's just not been that program since. I'm pessimistic. Let's put it that way. I'm pessimistic when it comes to Central Michigan. For now, I definitely have them more in the bet against category than the bet on category. Eastern Michigan Eagles next up. The Eastern Michigan Eagles, led by a guy that, to me, he's done everything he's humanly possible here in his now 11th season as head coach, Chris Creighton. I mean, this is just a guy that it's been difficult here at Ypsilanti. It's difficult to recruit to Ypsilanti. It's difficult to attract talent to Ypsilanti, Michigan. And yet, year in and year out, here is Chris Creighton doing the best job that he possibly can in order to put this team in a great spot. 2 years ago, they had a very good quarterback, Taylor Powell. Last year, their quarterback situation was kind of a mess. It really was not good quarterback play. Now, they do bring in Buffalo Bulls transfer Cole Snyder to be the quarterback this year for Eastern Michigan. But here's the problem with that. He wasn't lighting the world on fire with Buffalo. He had some good moments, but he was not consistent. 13 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That's not a great ratio. They lose 2 of their top running backs from last year. The good news is, though, they have an NC State transfer in Delbert Mims, who's likely to be their starting running back. They do like him, so that's the positive as far as the running back room is concerned. They lose their top receiver from last year. They do still have J.B. Mitchell III, pretty solid, but again, 2 starters on the O-line. That's definitely something that would concern me a little bit with the Eastern Michigan team this year. Can they build a quality, solid O-line is going to end up being the question with 2 starters back. And those 2 starters, by the way, fewer than 30 career starts in FBS football. So not only the 2 starters back, but the 2 starters you have back, not a lot of career games under their belt either. But they went to the transfer portal and did a decent job. So maybe this O-line can be solid. That's going to be a key position group for Eastern Michigan to gauge the success or failure of their season, I guess, when it's all said and done. I like the D-line. They should be more experienced there. They're weaker at linebacker because of what they lose there. They are very, very inexperienced and green in the secondary. And overall on the defense, 5 starters back. They allowed 27 points per game last year. 2 top tacklers gone. The good news is, even though that secondary is very, very inexperienced, they do at least have one experienced guy back at that in that secondary with Quintavious Scandrett. So it'll be it's good. At least they've got him back in the fold this year for Eastern Michigan. Their win total right now is 4.5. You look at the Eastern Michigan schedule. They open at UMass, at Washington. At UMass, believe it or not, that's a big game. It really is. It's crazy to say Eastern Michigan, UMass. Ian, are you fucking nuts? That's a big game. Well, I'm not saying big game for week 1 of the season compared to, say, Clemson, Georgia, or Notre Dame, Texas A&M, or Miami, Florida versus Florida, or whatever game you want to throw out there. But for those 2 programs that are trying to build some positive momentum, you better damn well believe it's a big game for those 2 schools. So UMass and Eastern Michigan's a pretty big game. You've got At Washington, they're not winning that. They're probably in tough against Jacksonville State, who's one of the better teams in the Sun Belt. St. Francis at home is probably winnable for them. At Kent State's winnable. So there's 3 winnable games right there so far. Central Michigan at home, Eastern Michigan's been a dangerous home dog, and that's one of those directional school rivalry games. So you wouldn't totally put it past them to win that. At Akron's a winnable game. Buffalo at home's a winnable game. So I look at Akron and Buffalo. They can win those. At Kent State, they can win those. They could win that. UMass is a coin flip game that they could win. They should win again. I see potential for 5 wins. I don't know about bowl eligibility. I don't know if they can squeeze a 6th win. Because for that to happen, they're going to have to upset Miami O or Jacksonville State or Toledo or Ohio or Western Michigan at the end of the season. And I don't know if they're capable of doing that. But there is a chance this team wins 5 games. There are definitely 5 winnable games on their schedule. And their win total right now is only 4.5. Minus 145 to the over. I lean over. It's just because of what Creighton is. Creighton has had this team overachieve many years where you think, how the hell does he do it with this football team? How does he do it? And now last year, 6 wins was not one of he's had better seasons than last year here at Eastern Michigan. I thought that team was abysmal last year, Eastern Michigan, abysmal, especially on offense. And that team still ended up 5-7 and in the regular season and ended up, I believe, winning their bowl game last year. I'm pretty sure they did last year. So, you look at it, and I think when it's all said and done here they ended up going 1, 2, 3. Yeah, they were only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, they did go 6-6. They lost their bowl. They were 6-6 in the regular season. They lost their bowl game. Okay, that's what ended up happening. But they won 6 games, last year in the regular season. And they did beat UMass last year as well, 19-17. So keep that in mind. But I think when you look at Eastern Michigan, I think they could get to 5. I would lean over, honestly, with Eastern Michigan's win total. Like I say, this guy, Chris Creighton, it's pretty amazing what he's been able to do with a program where it's difficult to recruit, difficult to get good, your 4 or 5 stars here, even 3 stars at times here to a place like Ypsilanti in Eastern Michigan, but he's done a solid job. And he's a good coach. And I don't like betting good coaches under a win total that low. And I've said that before. All right, Kent State, Golden Flashes next up here. You look at Kent State, it's year 2 now for their current head coach here with this Kent State Golden Flashes team. So that should put him in a spot where they can build on it. Kenny Burns, we'll see if they can improve on the brutal 1-11 season. 0-8 in conference play, by the way, last year for Kent State. New starting quarterback Tommy Ulatowski is now going to be the man behind center for Kent State this year. It'll be interesting to see. Actually, that's not Devin Kargman is challenging him in the fall camp here for that spot. Actually, you know what? They've given Kargman the spot. So it is going to be Kargman. Little surprising that Ulatowski is the guy that started last year. So the fact that Devin Kargman has beat him out is an interesting development. And he's going to end up being the starting quarterback here for Kent State. Gavin Garcia returns at running back. Krishawn McCray is back at the wide receiver spot. What I do like about Kent State is they do bring back 4 starting offensive linemen this year. Most assuredly, that is a good thing here for Kent State after an offense that just completely and utterly fell apart last year. I mean, my goodness. We knew, and after Sean Lewis departed, last year, 0 starters back. They slowed things down. They changed schemes quite a bit. 14.7 points per game was just an absolutely awful offensive football team last year, Kent State. They actually should be improved. Kargman's an unknown, but he was in the system last year. He was in the program last year. He won the job in fall camp, and the fact he won the job is a good thing. He didn't perform well enough that they had to go to Ulatowski again by default. No, he won the job. So maybe they've seen a guy that can give them improved quarterback production, because God freaking knows they're going to need to improve on what they did last year. But like I said, running back should be improved. Receivers are much more experienced. They should be improved there. Other than the center, much more experienced, much improved offensive line this year for Kent State. So I'm going to buy in that their offense could be at least a decent amount better, maybe even a lot better. Because look, the ceiling is there for them to be a lot better when you're talking about a 14.7 points per game team last year. Defense, that's going to be interesting because you look at the defense this year. He really likes them. Now, Kenny Burns is talking some stuff about how he thinks their defense is as good as any team in the MAC. Let's calm down a little bit, Kenny. You're a one fucking win football team last year. Let's not talk silly now, but there are five starters back, and plus they're a defense that gave up 36.8 points per game. I mean, that's just coach speak to me, thinking he thinks that they're going to have one of the better defenses in the conference. But they definitely should be better. How much better is the question? Are you going to improve just a little bit and still give up 28, 30 points per game, or are you going to end up being a lot better than that? It's going to end up being the question here. So I think when you look at their schedule, you look at their win total. By the way, for Kent State this year. And by the way, when it comes to that defense, 5 starters back, but he does think they're better this year with that D. They do bring back Nick Giacolone, the linebacker, who's very good for them, one of their top players. So that's a plus. Their win total is 2.5. It's not like we're asking much. 3 wins is going to cash an over with their win total. So the question is there 3 wins on their schedule? St. Francis at home. Can they win that? We'll see. Eastern Michigan, that is going to be near a pick 'em. That's a winnable game, though. Ball State, they're going to be a small home dog. It's a winnable game. Akron's going to be a pick 'em at home. That is definitely a winnable game. The rest of them, not so much. But, I think at over 2.5, to me, there's a better chance they win 3 games than 2 based on the way their schedule lines up. And I would honestly lean over a little bit at 2.5. Don't love it. But, Kent State, I think, it was so bad last year. Kragman won the quarterback job as a plus because it's not like Ulatowski was anything spectacular last year. That offense could be much, much improved. All the pieces are in place, running backs, receivers, the O-line's much more experienced. How much can that defense improve, I think, is going to determine it for Kent State. But at 2.5, I'd lean over. I think because, look, the bottom fell out last year, horrific. I know there were people that were pounding their head against the wall saying, oh, look at all these points to take Kent State, and they still failed to cover so many times last year. This could be the year to jump in and back them and see value with Kent State because, look, they bottomed out last year, and I think if things break right for them and they win more of those coin flip games, you could see a decent improvement from the Golden Flashes. All right, last year's MAC champion, the Miami, Ohio Redhawks. Chuck Martin, man. Mr. Rely has been here forever. And look, you got to give him a decent amount of credit for last year, what he was able to pull off in a MAC championship victory last year, because once again, it was a season marred by injuries for Brett Gabbert. He's been here forever, and it seems like he's every single year incapable of having a full season where he stays healthy. And that's going to be the challenge to him this year. He's back again. Am I going to get 12 games out of Brett Gabbert, though? Fuck if I know. Especially with what we've seen here the last few years with his inability really to stay on the field at any sort of consistent level. So that's obviously got to be something you really focus on here, is that he's a good, solid quarterback, but just haven't seen enough of him and see him stay healthy enough so far for the Miami Redhawks. But again, Gabbert out for the season after last year. We'll have to see, he's back. They do have behind him Maddox Kopp. We'll see if something were to happen to Brett Gabbert. As far as the running back room is concerned, it looks like Kenny Tracy in line to be the starter. But they do add a transfer running back from Purdue, which should help them and give them a little more depth there at the running back spot. As far as Dylan Downing, actually Dylan Downing might be the starting running back, bringing him in from Purdue. You look at them as far as wide receivers are concerned this year. Their top receiver, as far as receiving yards last year, is gone. So that is a group to watch for. Who's Gabbert going to be able to throw to? They do have better depth this year, and even though they lose their top guy, they still have Cade McDonald, the senior, who transfers in from Michigan State. so which is good to see. Andre, actually, he last year is with Miami O, transferred prior to last year from Michigan State. Andre Johnson as well, Reginald Virgil. So they still like, the depth they have at receiver, which is good. And again, you got Brett Gabbert back, who's one of the more experienced quarterbacks in this conference. That should help. Now, the defensive line, there are concerns there as far as that group is. Now, there are 6 starters on the defense that are back. And look, they've got Matt Solopik at linebacker returning, and Ty Wise, but the D-line is hurting a little bit compared to last year. So very, very good D-line, only 2 starters back. It's probably going to be a unit that does decline a little bit. It's probably the biggest concern we have on their defense. That linebacking core, which has, their top 2 guys back, though, it's very good. They shouldn't have any issues there. It looks like they do have a couple of losses here in the secondary as well, and less experience. But it's a secondary that has been coached well over the years, so probably will be solid. But again, maybe early in the season they will have some growing pains. I look at this team last year; they averaged 25.6 points per game. But Gabbert's back, and yes, they do lose, great running back and their best receiver, but you still got Tracy and the Purdue transfer, Dylan Dowling, a good solid running back tandem. Still options at receiver, including a senior in McDonald. 4 starters back on the O-line. The offense probably could be better this year. The question is going to be the D-line. It's the biggest concern, I think, for Miami O coming into the season when it's all said and done. But it's still going to be a pretty good defense overall. A lot to like again with Miami O. Very capable of winning the conference and repeating, but we don't see as many repeat champions lately in the MAC. And I think when you look at the schedule too, it's brutal at the beginning. At Northwestern, home to Cincinnati, at Notre Dame. They could start 0-3. Probably will start 0-3. Very good chance at least they start 0-3. Then they'll come home, they'll beat UMass. They probably can win at Toledo, but it's also a revenge game for Toledo, who lost to Miami O in the MAC championship game. At Eastern Michigan, Ohio, Central Michigan, Ball State, Kent State, Northern Illinois, those all should be wins. Bowling Green, though, is on the road, and you know how I feel about Bowling Green this year, that they're an improved team. They're a dark horse to win the MAC. So I think when it's all said and done, their win total here, Miami O, 7.5. Now, they still could win 8 games. Certainly, I think I look at the schedule here. I'm just doing the math here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They definitely have 7 wins. Do they have 8 on their schedule? At the Toledo game's interesting. That could be the swing game as far as I'm concerned with that. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games for sure. But Toledo's a coin flip. Bowling Green's a coin flip. Can they pull an upset against Cincinnati at home? They're going to probably have to win one of those 3 to get to 8 wins and go over. So I would lean slightly. I think they're capable of winning one of those. So maybe I'll lean over 7.5. They're still good, but I don't think that they're a shoe-in to win. They could. They've still got talent on both sides. They're going to have Gabbert back at quarterback. Maybe they do repeat as MAC champs, but I don't want to take them as the favorite to win the conference. Like I say, I look for some longer shots in the conference. But again, Miami O should be in contention, though, again, for another MAC title. All right, Northern Illinois Huskies next up. This is an interesting team because on paper, as far as their roster, as far as the talent they have on this football team, there's a lot to like. The quarterback expected to start for Northern Illinois this year. They like his arm. They like his ability to run and move in the pocket. And I'm talking about Jalen Macon, although he's being pressured by Ethan Hampton in camp. So no set number 1 quarterback. And, that does worry me a little bit when you've gone this deep into camp and you don't really have decided who the quarterback's going to be. We'll have to wait and see. But Ethan Hampton might have the inside track. And again, he's replacing Rocky Lombardi. You look at Ontario Brown is back at running back. They do have a couple of good receivers back. The O-line, though, there are some concerns there when it comes to the offensive line here for this Northern Illinois team. we'll have to wait and see. Actually, you know what? There's not as many as I thought coming into the year with Northern Illinois. They do lose a couple of really good pieces at the center, and the right tackle are gone. But they still have the other 4 starters back because one of the guys that was injured last year missed a bunch of games, and Logan Schmitz, he missed a lot of games last year, but he's back. So it actually still looks like a pretty good offensive line for them. The D line looks very good. So they're stout in the trenches, and that's usually a plus, especially in the MAC. And Northern Illinois could have a very good O line, very good D line coming into this season. No question. You look at the linebacker spot coming into the year, 8 starters back. Javon Bird was an outstanding corner. He's back, of course, leading tackler. Like I said, part of that great D-line. Ray Thomas is back. The linebacking core should be solid still. The secondary should be really good. I mean, the roster's really good on paper. It's what are they going to get at quarterback, though? Big question. Hampton or Macon, or is one of those guys going to be able to step up for them? And another concern is, are they going to be able to win games in spite of their coach? I'm not the biggest fan of their head coach. I think he's made in-game blunders. I don't think he's necessarily phenomenal with adjustments, and I'm talking about Thomas Hammock. I think you could do better as far as from a coaching standpoint with this Northern Illinois team. But, boy, I mean, the roster is good. 16 returning starters, top 25 as far as returning experience overall in this team. I just hope the coach doesn't screw it up, and I hope they find a quarterback to play well, because those are my 2 biggest concerns with this group. Good in the trenches. Defense should be really good. But can they get the good quarterback play? It's a big, big, big question, big if. And can the coach not, mess things up? Even though I've got my pessimism with the quarterback play for this team and the coach, 6.5, I would still lean a little bit to the over with this win total. But again, replacing Rocky Lombardi, can they get them? That's going to end up being the question. But, over 6.5, I'd lean that way. And they are a team, this is one of those teams where I want to see what they do. I want to see how the quarterback plays. If I see even just solid quarterback play, and at least not horrible quarterback play, they're solid or better, average or better, then the defense is really good. They're going to be able to win some games. And I think if I at least see the quarterback play be decent, I'll jump in then maybe on a flyer for Northern Illinois to win the MAC, because they really could with this defense and how good they are in the trenches. But I want to see what the quarterback play looks like, and that's still a big question mark for me with the Huskies. All right, Ohio Bobcats next up here. Of course, last year, the top 2 QBs from last season gone. It's going to be Parker Navarro, who's going to get the start. Now, this is a guy that did play some last year for the Bobcats. They also have a lot to replace at running back. They have multiple starting receivers, and the top tight end are gone. So that's a lot, that you're missing from this team on offense from last year. So how they're going to look on that side of the ball, it's going to be an interesting dilemma here for Tim Albin in his 4th season. And look, I'll be honest about Ohio. Curtis Rourke departing. That offense, it was unfathomable to me how much they underachieved last year. I mean, last year you would have thought that with all the starters back, to actually fall down, and average 24.3 points per game and be worse last year on offense than they were 2 years ago, that's definitely something that would concern me. But again, they dropped off last year, and you think this year coming into the year, all kinds of question marks on offense, but did they bottom out last year? I've got to see it before I believe it with the offense. There's just, to me, a lot of concerns. There's only 57 career starts back on the offensive line. That is a big-time concern. I look at the defense coming into this season for Ohio. It's probably only 2 starters are back on that side of the football as well this year. That's definitely something that's worrisome to me coming into the year. It's big time, in my opinion, growing pains on the O-line, big time growing pains at, is Parker Navarro going to be good at quarterback? The offense was supposed to be amazing last year. They weren't. They underachieved. And now we expect an offense that on paper looks worse than it did last year to be better. I'm not ready to go there. And then I think when you look at that defensive line, just 1 starter back, that's a big concern. The losses galore at linebacker. The good news is the secondary wasn't hit as hard, but you're still talking about a group that wasn't great back there last year, and still gave up some big plays in the passing game. Again, they lose 9 of their top 12 tacklers on the defensive side of the football, and they have a new DC this year as well. So huge step back on defense. The offense, again, I think if the offense was really good last year, as they were expected to be, they definitely decline. But because they had an underachieving season on offense last year, maybe they'll be as good, maybe even better. But I got to see it before I believe it, because you got a new quarterback. The running backs are being replaced. The receivers, you lose a ton. And that O-line, man, I mean, that's concerning, how much inexperience you have there. Still, I think when you look at the Ohio team overall, their win total is 6.5. For me, it's under. I think it'll be just a battle for bowl eligibility for the Bobcats this year. Now, I will say one thing about this Bobcats team is they've got a schedule where they do have some winnable games. Akron at home, Morgan State, at Central Michigan, they could win. Buffalo's a winnable game at home. At Kent State, Eastern Michigan at home, Ball State at home. So, you count those up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Maybe they do get to 7 wins, but I don't see them winning all of those games. And there's a lot of coin flips there with only 6 overall starters back. I know last year they still ended up being 10-3 overall. That's a big drop off to me this year. Now that's been adjusted. We're talking about a 10-win team last year, now 6.5 with their win total. But there's not a whole lot I'm loving about Ohio at the moment. With everything they lose from last year, under 6.5, even with the adjustment down in their win total, I would only look at the under. All right, 2 teams left. Toledo Rockets. Look, Toledo, we think of them for years under Jason Candle, one of the top teams in the MAC. Maybe they are again this year, but I think for the first time in a long time, we could see a step back from the Toledo Rockets. DeQuan Finn is very athletic, mobile quarterback, dynamic for MAC standards. Replacing him won't be easy. You go to Tucker Gleason now as the starting quarterback. Look, who's had experience, but how will that go is the question. You lose your starting running back from last season, so Jaquez Stewart's going to be the new starter. You do have your top 2 receivers back, but here's the concern for Toledo. 0 returning starters back on the offensive line. You don't see that very often, but that's exactly what we've got here for the Toledo Rockets this year. And that's not ever a situation where I'm looking at that as a bet-on type of a situation. So much less experience. Now, I will say the one thing they've done is they did go to the transfer portal. 3 Power 5 transfers brought in to shore up this depleted offensive line. But let's see it all fit together. Let's see the pieces fit. Let's see the chemistry there, continuity there before we're ready to say it's going to be any good. That would be concerning for me with this goes. When you look at the defensive line, that is a good area for the team. For as much as the O-line has got major issues, the D-line should be solid. But still, for the Toledo Rockets, only 4 starters back on defense as well. The good news is, the D-line should still be one of the better ones in the conference. The linebacking core, definitely much weaker than it was last year, only 1 starter back. And when you look at the secondary this year, there could be a little bit of a drop-off because, they lose their defensive coordinator, 1 starter back as well. Now, they do have a couple of guys they really like, and they did bring in a transfer from the Power 5 to shore up the secondary, but will that pay off for them is going to be the question. The offense, to me, definitely has to take a step. You would think takes a step back. Tucker Gleason may be capable, but again, when you talk about 0 back on the offensive line, that is a major concern. Defensive tackle, they're solid. Like I say, linebacker, not bad, but second cornerbacks are a concern. Where's the pass rush going to come from? So the defense is good on the D-line still, but linebacker, secondary, a few more question marks there. Last year, still a very good season, 11-3 overall. To me, they're going to drop some from that. Their win total is 8.5. I like under, believe it or not. And look, they'd have to win 3 fewer games, 8 or less, to go under their win total. But I got to be honest, this is the first time in a while I've been concerned, because to me they've been able to win with their talent. They've been able to get by. They're one of the teams in this conference with the fewest amount of returning experience. The one thing that does concern me about the under, though, is the schedule is manageable. It's doable here for Toledo. In fact, it's a very light schedule. They're still going to be favored in a large part of their games. The UMass game, Buffalo, Eastern Michigan, Bowling. I don't know if they'll be favored against Bowling Green, because by the time they play Bowling Green at home, I think we'll figure out Bowling Green's pretty damn good. And I don't see them necessarily winning that game, even though it is at home against Bowling Green. Central Michigan, Ohio, and Akron, there's a good chance they're favored in all three. It's an easy schedule. It's the only concern I have about this under, but I still did take a piece of it under the win total. I think from a ATS standpoint, they will be an overrated, overvalued commodity. We'll be looking for spots to fade and bet against Toledo this season. All right, Western Michigan Broncos, final team here in this MAC conference preview. You look at them coming into the season. Western Michigan, can they make improvements? They're another team that last year, 4 wins. It's the second year, though, for Lance Taylor. So you should, as head coach, so you should see some growth, and that's usually a better sign. They have Hayden Wolf, the former Old Dominion quarterback years ago, that's going to be the starting QB here for the Western Michigan Broncos this season. So we'll see how he fares. He returns. He's had a solid season, but he's got to cut down on interceptions. Jalen Buckley is back as their lead running back this season. Kenneth Womack, who's a pretty solid receiver, is back for them. It's the leading receiver as far as production. So it's good to see that. Top running back, top receiver, top quarterback returning. Top running back, top receiver, top quarterback. The O-line's got 4 starters back on the offensive line. That is definitely something that you want to see, no question. 8 of their top 10, almost 100 career starts back on this O-line for Western Michigan. So should be a very good offensive line this year. No question about that. The defensive line this year, it should be pretty good, actually, when you look at it overall. This defense. Potential there overall, 6 starters back. That's a good thing. The defensive line, like I say, it does look like they've got a chance to be capable this year. 5 of their top 8 are back, which is good to see. Then you look at the linebacking core coming into this year. They've got a few more returning starters. They had nothing back from that linebacking core going into last year. So that is a solid thing. Or solid situation for Western Michigan. And then on the in the secondary, this year, when you look at what they have there, they should get better, because last year they got picked on. They were just the pass rush wasn't great, and they got roasted in the secondary. Teams threw the ball at times at will versus Western Michigan. But the good news is that secondary should be better, does have more experience, and their top player is the safety, Tate Halleck, and he is back in that secondary this year for Western Michigan. Look, year 2, 6.5 is their win total. I think there's a chance they can go over this win total here, 6.5. They've got a ton of returning experience back. In fact, they're probably top 15, top 20 as far as returning production, returning experience in the entire country this year, which is a good thing for Western Michigan. The question is the schedule. At Wisconsin, at Ohio State, those are going to be losses. You're 0-2 right out of the hop. But Bethune-Cookman at home can win that. At Marshall, look, it's a competitively lined game. At Ball State on the road can win that. Akron at home should win that. At Buffalo on the road, I think they can win that and should win that. Kent State at home should win that. You do have a couple of coin flips. Northern Illinois, Bowling Green, who could both be good teams this year. So those won't be easy. But Central Michigan, it's a winnable game, and you probably should beat Eastern Michigan in your finale. So when I look at their schedule overall here, I see at least 6 wins. And if they win just one of the coin flips, there's your 7 wins. So I think there's a chance they go over this win total. And not just that, I actually think this is another team I would take a small flyer on to win the MAC. We have seen this before in this conference where a team that did have a losing record can come out of the blue and contend to win the MAC the very next season. Maybe we see that here for Western Michigan this year, that they're able to compete here for a MAC conference championship, because there's a lot of things pointing to improvement. All the returning production, second year in the coaches system, an experienced quarterback and Hayden Wolf leading them. A lot of skill position talent back. The O-line looks good. The D-line looks solid as well. And so I think when you look at the Western Michigan Broncos here coming into this season overall, there is definitely going to be a potential for this team to maybe be a surprise dark horse contender here in the MAC. So that is why I would probably look toward. I'm just trying to find the where are they here? I'm trying to find it here. So, I'll eventually get to it. Here it is, MAC championship futures. Yeah. Plus 650, plus 700. That's what we're looking at with Western Michigan right now. I think that's not a bad price. Like Miami O is favored to win this conference. And they still could. They're very good, especially with Gabbert back. Northern Illinois, if the coach stays out of the way and they hit on the quarterback spot, they could win it. To me, it's Miami O, Northern Illinois, Western Michigan, Bowling Green. That will win the conference. But I don't want to take Miami O at their price. But I do think there's value in that mid-tier of NIU, Western Michigan, and Bowling Green. I would say of those three, though, my favorite is Bowling Green. I really think Bowling Green could be that team. But Western Michigan could as well. So I still think over their win total, they could get to 7. And I think they're also worth maybe a longer shot, dark horse look to win the MAC. There you go, the MAC preview. Let's give you a MAC conference best bet, and it's going to be the aforementioned Bowling Green Falcons. Over their season win total is what I'm going to give for the best bet here for the MAC college football preview show. I do think they go over their win total. I like Bazelak back. Leffler's done a nice job. That offense got better. It should be the best offense they've had, especially with all the experience Bazelak now has. Skill position tech, great offensive line. That defense improved so much last year. They could be even better this year. Over 6.5 wins, even money, Bowling Green. That is going to be my best bet here in the MAC. All right, there you go. That is the MAC conference season preview here on Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. Hit the like button on the way out. We hope you're enjoying these NFL division and college football conference preview videos right here on Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. I'm Ian Cameron. Thanks for tuning in to another season preview edition here on Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy, and we'll talk to you again soon right here for another preview edition show on Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy.